on Australia's business channel. This is Media Week.
Hello and welcome to the program. Ahead, the outlook for advertising spending in 2015, plus the best paid media CEOs in Australia, and what were the most popular topics on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter this year. But first, NEP Australia is not a name many inside the media business are perhaps familiar with, let alone people not working in the sector. What is better known is Global Television, the company's former branding. NEP provides outsourced TV production services and has become a big player in the Asia-Pacific region. It covers thousands of hours of live television for free-to-air and subscription TV channels, and also provides studio facilities to the networks. Well, to talk us through the business and all the latest TV trends and some recent acquisitions as well is the NEP Australia Chief Executive Keith Andrews. And also, of course, as always, our co-host James Manning, Editor and Publisher of Media Week. Great to see you both. Keith, thank you so much for joining us. Just tell us about the name change this year, and does it represent new ownership, becoming part of that sort of NEP worldwide network?
Yes, Global Television, as you mentioned, had been in the business here for over 20 years. NEP acquired us in January this year, and with the increasing globalisation of businesses, we've adopted their name to provide a common brand worldwide. And that change is happening as we speak.
Keith, Global and now NEP been outsourcing stuff for television for a long time. It's probably even more important now when they're sort of cutting their costs. Does that give you more opportunities in the business?
There's been an evolution, James, of efficiency being driven through the whole industry. And yes, as networks, broadcasters, production companies have all sought to improve their efficiencies and their bottom line, we exist because we can utilise some of those assets more frequently and therefore provide them at a better value than what they could owning them themselves. So at a macro level that's true, but not every opportunity is a fit for us, of course. But generally that's a fair statement.
Just being part two of that worldwide network as well, what sort of opportunities does that bring?
Well, as our clients travel, they do go overseas to cover sporting events. They can get a common service, facilities, look and feel of a business that provides value to them, and in some cases send less people, which is an economic value. And equally, as our US or European clients travel here, they see NEP branded equipment in the car park, and that makes them feel like they're getting the same level of service worldwide that they would expect.
Tell us about the key things you cover. I think sport you do well. What else do you do? And are there opportunities for you to overtake other things as the networks, as you call it, continue to look for efficiencies?
Yeah, look, we don't compete with our clients, so we're not going to buy sports rights, or we're not a broadcaster, so it's often easier to describe what you don't do than what you do. Certainly outside of sport, we use a lot of those same assets to do studio productions, and we put them to work through the studios, both ones we own and studios that clients contract, be it Fox Studios or Docklands in Melbourne. And that helps our asset utilisation, and it helps provide our clients a bigger range of product and service than what they would have on their own.
And just as part of that, because I mean, you've had a couple of acquisitions just recently, news just today, buying the Seven Networks 50% share in the owner of Media City Melbourne, the TV studio complex there, and also Silk Studios, of course, in Sydney as well. Yeah,
we're very excited about the opportunity in, let's call it non-sport, which are the studio-based productions, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, as the broadcasters are increasingly seeking to get more content, they've got digital channels, whether it's subscription TV, adding more channels, free-to-air channels, they're seeking more content. And we see a really bright future for Australian-produced content because they can determine when they run it. They don't have to worry about does it get pirated on the way out of the US or Europe. But the most important reason is it rates really well. And Australian content has a really bright future. You need studios, and Silk fulfills an important gap in our studio offering that we didn't have, that Harry Michaels had built a great business there, and we're delighted that he's entrusted us to carry on the Silk business. And the Melbourne studios, which is really the home of Seven Productions originally, we formed a joint venture in 2006. In 2014, Seven have decided, which we're delighted about, they don't need to own the studio to make great television, and they'll continue to make great television there with us providing that studio to them.
Keith, tell me, do you go and knock on their door looking for extra work, or do you wait till they come to you? Because, I mean, sport, shiny floor shows, the entertainment stuff. One big area where it's continuing to fill more hours is the news. Could you ever see yourself taking on something like that and outsourcing the studios for them to utilise for their news, things like that?
Certainly, James, in studios or the facilities infrastructure, yes. We're not a news broadcaster in creating the content, but absolutely that, you know, Silk is an overflow studio for a lot of broadcasters now. It doesn't have to appear anything different to what the brand of the client is. But we do see that there is a greater demand for that sort of infrastructure, and we'll continue to invest where broadcasters need overflow work areas, if you like.
So the turnaround could be quite quickly between different broadcasters' needs of different shows.
Correct, and that's no problem for us. That is actually one of the competencies we bring to the market, that we can be doing a Sky News production in one half-hour segment and then very quickly flip to something for another broadcaster without anyone knowing anything different.
But it seems like you're almost running a trucking company at times. You invest in a lot of gear, but to make that gear pay, you've got to constantly have it working, which means transporting it all around the country. Tell us a little bit about the size of the investment and that side of it.
Well, it's millions of dollars. One of those major OB vans that does a major sporting event with all of its cameras and gear is north of $10 million on the road. And scale does matter in this business because Australia is a big continent. So we deploy our assets around the country to try and minimise them running back and forward. But, you know, that means we can use one truck in Brisbane through the winter that's doing NRL for Nine or AFL for Fox or an NRL for Fox, where you get to see that the asset utilisation, which is how we make our returns, can be higher as an independent company than it can be if a broadcaster owned those assets on their own, where they might be doing one or two events a week. And a studio is the same. The more work we can put through a studio for all of our clients, we'll get a higher utilisation than what they can on their own.
Not to get... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that. Do you get a global discount on your gear now? I mean, NEP, you know, America, Europe, can you bulk buy on some of that stuff?
Absolutely.
And get, you know, savings there?
Look, our clients, we're all under price pressure. We certainly now, as part of the NEP network, they're the largest facilities provider of these sort of services in the world, and we certainly would buy as well as anybody. And
so they must be almost the biggest customer for some of the manufacturers.
Correct, we are, unquestionably.
I guess too, not to get too technical, but where do you see it going? Because, I mean, 3D was a big buzzword a couple of years back. We're always hearing about, you know, the latest cameras, latest equipment. I mean, how do you keep on top of that too with, you know, what the broadcasters want?
Well, that's a very good question, because when you said in the end of your question there what the broadcasters want, that's actually where we start. So we don't go to them saying, we think 3D's the next phenomenon. But to the degree they want 3D, we facilitated all the 3D events in Australia that happened, and now they've gone. Thank goodness we didn't make major investments in that.
Done a 3D event.
Exactly. But now there's a lot of talk of Ultra HD and 4K, and look, we'll follow the market. That's our job. We'll make investments where our clients want to deploy new technology, and we'll work with them on doing that. That is the value we bring to the business.
So any predictions on 4K or any of those sorts of things?
I think we'll wait and see. You know, these always start out as a end-user screen-led market that starts with what's in people's homes, and there's a lot of points in the value chain to get a signal from an outside broadcast into someone's home that have to change for some of these technologies. But if that's where the market goes, we're fine with that. And we can now follow these trends worldwide as well.
Do you virtually cover everything in HD, even though some broadcasters still show it in standard definition?
Mostly, yes. We mostly capture everything in HD now. In fact, I can't think of a situation where we don't. But you know, that's as much now. You couldn't buy SD gear for a competitive price even if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Just how competitive is the production space in Australia right now?
Well, it's competitive in that there are other people who do what we do. We're all a bit different. But also we have overseas competitors who can bring in fly packs and provide the level of equipment and service to do a similar sort of service. We think we're pretty good, obviously, but it is a competitive space, and the more productions that are done, the greater the interest other people will have in coming into this market.
Keith, everyone on the show has to get a Netflix question. Yours we can sort of work in without too much trouble. Now, if people start to migrate to TV on demand, does that sort of have ramifications long term for NEP, or does it make your offer more valuable perhaps to the broadcaster?
Yeah, look, I get asked this question a lot. Ultimately, Netflix is another channel for more content into a consumer, and to the degree they want to create more content, that supports my contention that people will ultimately invest in more content where studios, whether it's live, near live or dramas, we don't fit every part of that market. But to the degree they want to sponsor more content, we will get our share of that. So I don't have to decide if Netflix or some broadcaster is going to pick up some show. I'm just interested in what's happening at a macro level, because we can win our share if people are creating more content, and that's what's happening.
I guess we're just interested in another question everyone gets to, especially this time of year, is your outlook. Firstly, though, sort of before we get to your wider outlook for the sector, but just for your business for 2015, what's your sort of thinking in terms of growth? Because, I mean, we have sort of seen the final past few months, you know, the budget cuts for ABC and SBS. How does that sort of filter through? I mean, is that, you know, something that you're eyeing at all, or what's your sort of thinking for your business for 2015? Yeah,
we do watch what's happening with our clients, and we're in close contact with them. 2015 is a year, we're now 1 year into our ownership with NEP. I personally and a lot of my team have spent a lot of time with them now on what we think we could bring to Australia that adds value to our clients, and we're working on some innovations there that I won't share yet, but some of our clients are working with us on some things we'll bring down from the US that we can deploy in the market here. Equally, our US parent likes to look at things we're doing here and see what can work over there. Australia has a great reputation for covering live sport worldwide, and you know, we're fortunate that we can help them look at things they do and see if they can do it better. 2015 is also a take a breath year for us, because in 2014 we had the Glasgow Games, which we're host broadcaster. We just finished the G20, for which we're host broadcaster. And in Australia, whilst there are some major events and we'll have a role to play in all of those, it's not as busy a year on some of the big picture things as what it could have been. And our major sports that we cover and the studio productions will still be a big part of our year next year.
Yeah, so just, I guess, final question now, you know, on the outlook for the sector.
And how are you affected too with other people, you know, do it tougher or...
Yeah, look, the ABC and SBS and all of the publicity around, are they outsourcing or cost-cutting? Whilst they may be interested in divesting of some assets, equally from what I've read, they're getting out of live sport and some of the other things they do. So it may be an asset sale rather than could we pick up more sport, depending where that goes. Our core broadcast customers are all predicting more of the same in their business with what they do with us. And even if a show goes away, something will replace it. That's the way their schedules work. And we're excited about 2015 and we'll be ready.
Sounds like we need to get you back in next year. Thank you so much for that, Keith. Keith Andrews, CEO of NEP Australia. We're going to take a very quick break here on Media Week. Coming up, new content deals for the various streaming video on demand services. Get the latest with Media Week's James Manning up next.